Hi, welcome. We're here for the fourth annual Easton Book Festival, and I'm here with Maryann Riker, book artist, and we're going to make some zines and talk about some zines. And you might wonder, what are zines? What's this all about? What is this whole zine culture?
Yeah.
But first, I'm going to thank a few of our sponsors. First, I'm going to thank Lafayette College, who was our primary sponsor this year, and Lafayette Humanities Center, Kelly Nissan,
Okay.
Colonial Pizza, Antonio's, and Urco Credit Union, and a whole bunch of others that I can't think of off the top of my head. Maryann,
Okay.
tell us what is this all about?
Well, zines I fell in love with years ago when I went into New York City to a store called Printed Matter, which is still in existence.
I know that place.
And it's a fabulous store. They carried zines, broadsides, artist books, and all types of underground press releases. And when I actually saw what a zine was, I kind of ignored it. But lo and behold, when I researched the history of it, I really fell in love with the whole concept. And it wasn't until probably 2017 when Jim Toya asked me to do a project with the seniors for the community arts program that I decided I'm going to do a zine. Because high school students love things that are kind of provocative, underground, protest, and I thought that'll capture their interest. And it did, actually. So I had to come up with zines because I never did them. So I thought, okay, I know it's a protest vehicle, I know it's low-grade printing, it's mass marketing. So when I researched it, I found out that it had a rich history, because in the 30s, there was a science fiction community that was starting to emerge. And the way to get to know each other, they started creating fan magazines, and they shortened it and they called them fanzines. So we're coming out of depression in America here, and people are starting to have this bright, optimistic outlook. So that's how they formed their social network. And then we go into the 50s and the beat culture, and they started opening up more underground presses, and you have more publications happening. And in the 70s, again, more presses, underground presses, and these marginalized groups, the LGBT, AIDS activists, the pink movement, which was women's feminist movement, they all started creating zines. And it was a way of creating and cementing counterculture within these marginalized groups. And if you go to the New York Public Library, it has one of the richest histories of zine collections on the East Coast, along with Bard College. And if you Google the history of zines, you're going to come up with all of these wonderful, rich nodes and collections that people have gathered. So I wanted to give my concept and twist about zines. So when I started them, I started to look at women's issues, women's historical movements, and I came up with something called women's health issues. And Lafayette College has this, and one is called Padded, a history of the Kotex pad. So, and I did these zines based on one-sheet book structures. So what is a one-sheet book structure? Well, there it is. All right, so it's a simple black and white, and I did this on Microsoft Word. You can do it on Google. Historically, zines were just handwritten, printed cheaply. I used a Xerox. That's what I loved about zines. And I wanted to use like an artist book structure to create this. So that's really how I got started. And they just took off from there, because I did this whole series on women's health issues, including my favorite, Stuck Up, A History of the Tampon. And Nancy Scott is a poet that I worked with, and she has one on the back here if you want to read it. And it just took off. I have an artist book dealer that I work with. We did a set of zine, for the first year we did three per year, and it covered every women's topic you could ever think of. Women's makeup, women who caught on fire because of the crinolines. So it was a fun little project. And my zines tend to look more like little books. That's not really what zines look like historically. They were more hand sketched out, black and white, very grungy looking. Yes, I do have the grungy look on some of these zines. So here's one called Bobbed, the history of the bob. Tight-laced, a zine on the history of corseting. And I printed these on pink paper. The original zines that I created actually had a hardcover collection is over at Lafayette College. I think you have at least
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
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 Did you? I just have to ask you this. Did you know that the Dixie Cup collection that Dixie originally marketed sanitary products?
No.
And there's stuff. There's stuff in the collection about that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
I'll have to
there's
make an
a-
appointment.
Yes, you do.
All right, okay. I didn't realize that because I wanted to do a pop-up book about Dixie cups. I thought,
Well,
what an appropriate.
That was one of their
topic.
early products that they later
I didn't know
jettisoned
that.
in favor of paper
I
cups.
didn't know that. Wow. So Dixie tampons. Okay, all
They
right.
did, they just,
With those
they
little.
did. And I forget what they called them. I mean, but it's in the guide to the collection.
Okay.
You know,
All right. Yeah. No, I'll
yeah,
check on that
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I've been doing some regional books. Like on canals and the silk industry in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
Because I was born and raised here in the Lehigh Valley, so my parents grew up in Glendon and worked in those different industries. My father walked the mules on the canal. My mother and aunt worked at the silk factory when they made lingerie there. So it's a rich history for me, and one which I really enjoy learning about. So anyways, you can look at these. But again, these are typically zines that are a little bit more finished and a little bit more sophisticated, not as edgy as what a regular zine would be.
I have a selection of zines
Yes.
that I brought.
cool.
Okay, great.
if
So
you wanna-
please show those, Daryl.
Yeah, if they had word processing back then, they would have made them look like
Well,
this. They were
exactly,
using what they had,
exactly.
so.
And I was thinking, well, can I make like a handcrafted looking zine? I just couldn't. I was like,
take a glance through there. There's a
exactly, like
whole lot of different
this is
things there.
really what like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
types
Yeah.
of zines
Yeah.
that Printed Matter was showing. These are the things that I fell in love with. Who doesn't love like the grungy look of the Xerox
St. Mark's
copier?
Bookshop always had a bunch of them.
Yes.
Original, like I used to live
Yes.
in St. Mark's Place. and that was-
Exactly. Yeah, that was another
Those were
great
so cool.
hangout. Yeah. And we used to find these in the bookstores in New York.
Yeah.
You'd walk in,
Right.
or like if the community centers, if they were offering services to AIDS victims or something. And that's really, historically, the information that we got about AIDS really came out of the underground
Yeah.
market with zines.
Yes,
all right, and their
equals death, and
publications.
it's a little
Exactly.
triangle.
Yeah. So, these are, thank you so much for bringing, this is what I remember about zines compared to this, but I called this a zine and it worked, But what's funny about this is because it actually started as a project with Jim Toya teaching high school students, I put it out to my artist book dealer and they love them. And I was donating these. Well, they sold tons of them for me.
Wow.
So it ended up like, $35 for a set of 5 or something. And a lot of the special collections purchased them. So yeah, it worked out. As far as zine making, you can make zines that are in any size. Like this is a great little piece. How did you bind this? Oh, with a stapler. Okay, all
With
right.
that magical staple.
Exactly.
Cards
Which
with
is
his
right
life.
here.
I didn't
Which
make
is
that
right
one.
here. You didn't make this one?
No.
Okay. So there's different ways. What I wanted to show, see, I love stuff like this. This is like a little pop-up.
Wow.
That's cool.
I love stuff like that. So what I wanted to show real quick is something that I made because people are like, well, why should I make a zine? Well, if you love something and you're passionate about it, zines are a great way to get it out to the public because you can drop these like art swaps or, art for abandonment. Make a bunch of these, drop them off, secretively, and people will start picking them up and reading. People are so used to looking at things on their phone that they still love to find
Mhm,
a
the
book
tactile.
or a handmade item. It's great. Based on that, it's also a great way to showcase what you do. I always say to writers, you know what? You can handwrite your text, your essay, your poem, or whatever, Xerox it. You just put it on a copier, and you've got a chapter. You print out 25 copies. It's so easy. I wanted to do something for artists because I didn't know who my audience was going to be. So if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I actually have been doing these little watercolors.
You want to give your Facebook and Instagram information for the
Sure.
video?
It is hashtag Maryann Riker or hashtag Just a Rip Press or at Maryann Riker. Yeah. So I've been doing, if you follow me, I've been doing these little miniature toy watercolors. Okay. So I thought, you know what? Let me show what it would look like if I wanted to do for an artist what type of work they do. So I generated a little one-page zine that I'm going to fold and cut. And it's like a little catalog of what an artist makes or creates.
Great stocking stuffers.
Exactly, exactly. And you can even put a little thread on here and hang it. So why don't you all come up? Now you know the one-sheet book structure.
I do.
How about you, Diane?
No.
Oh,
I don't know.
Well,
that
then
now.
you come up,
Oh.
and you come up, and Daryl come up, because it's so
I know it, I
easy.
can just never remember it.
I know, I know.
Well, I used the one-page book structure when we did the poster for Marabiglia.
Yeah.
The poster was on one side, the
Oh.
checklist
Yeah.
was on the other,
Yeah.
and then did the cut and folded it. So you could either have it as the poster,
Right.
or you could have it as the checklist.
That was very cool. as I
Yeah, that was a
recall.
great piece.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
fun. Although
Yeah.
I
Yes.
should have used a shorter piece.
That's all right. And the great thing about this structure is that it can be used with any size sheet. I mean, I use this with teaching senior citizens, or not senior citizens, residents of nursing homes. I ask them to write their life story, and I take in butcher block paper, craft paper, in large sizes, like 4 by 5 feet, and we will fold a book. And they come up with a book about the size of a comic book or a magazine. So it's really easy. You fold it in half, and you know what, I didn't bring my bone folder. Oh my God.
You
I
don't travel with your bone folder.
I need one hanging around my neck.
Well, you know.
A hanging
That would
bone
look
folder.
pretty cool.
It would. It
actually.
would.
Especially if it had a little point. It does have a
Exactly.
little point.
It does.
I
It
know.
really does. So now we have 4 folds, right?
Right.
3 folds, okay? And then we fold it in half. And what's really funny is when I was doing this, it takes a while to get everything to line up. So I brought all of the major boo-boos that I did because every copier will shift
Huh.
the margins if you're using a Word document. So I turned it into a PDF and then printed it out. All right, so now look at what I have. All right. Oop,
Yeah.
you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna fold it in half and I'm gonna cut from this point up to there. Does that make sense?
From the edge to the center.
Exactly. Thank you, Tammy. Since I can't talk for anything. It's
For
perfect.
people who are watching.
I'm gonna
Oh,
do this.
okay.
So you kind of get like 2 valley folds and a mountain fold. In book arts, that's what they call that.
Ah.
Or for kids, this is a hot dog fold and this is a hamburger fold. Isn't that interesting? So now I get what I call the walking man, all right? And I got it. I have to do it this way. So I'm gonna have to reverse everything, which is fine. Everybody panics. Oh my God, I folded it the wrong way. No, you did not fold it the wrong way. It's all good. And then you just clean it.
Ah. So cool.
Yeah. And kids are like, oh, really? Oh, Mrs. Riker. Oh, I love that. I'm like, no, I'm single. Please don't curse me. Anyways, and there's your little book.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that great? And I just kind of just burnish it. So there's a little book
Look at
right
that.
there.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that sweet?
That's
So
great.
I just did this on Word. It took me about 2 hours to get everything positioned and laid out correctly. But it's a nice little way to show others what kind of work you do, or if you want to show what type of poetry you're presenting. It's great. You can give it out. As you said, Tammy, it's a great little gift.
Little stocking stuffer.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the covers. That's
Right.
great.
So, and this was a mistake because look what happened. So I have the corn popper toy on the back, right? And this is what happens. And I thought this was the back when I was laying it out. So I have to Zine by, but I do have the right version in here. And you can all take one home. So that was one of the first ones I did this week. And then I wanted to show one called the Oxen Plow. Are you familiar with the Oxen Plow? Oh, this is so easy. I love this because it's just a fun little form. A lot of these forms came out of Japanese and Chinese traditions of paper making and book making, all right? The reason, and you can probably speak better to this, but in Japan, when they do paper making, it's done in water that is very cold. The snow melts and runs off the mountain, so it's ice cold. So it gives you a thinner paper, all right? In China, the waters are warmer, so it gives you a thicker paper, but it's still thin. But because of its thinness, the Japanese calligraphers would literally have to develop book forms so that the sumi ink would not bleed through. So this type of form, the next one I'm going to show you, and there's other one-sheet book forms that you can investigate, were specifically designed for books with calligraphers in using sumi ink or any type of inks that would like bleed through because of the thinness of the paper. It's beautiful to see when a Japanese paper maker is making the paper, how thin and translucent it is. They know their fibers, they know everything. And traditionally, in the rivers, when they were making the paper, it would be the paper makers first, and then the kimono silk dyers, because you did not want the dye polluting the paper. So they were all stationed, you know, they all knew their place.
Bathers would be like 5th or 6th, and
Right,
they'd be covered
right.
with all sorts of colors and pieces of.
Yeah. So this is the oxen plow structure, and primarily it's 3 columns, like that. And with these, you just kind of fold and guess, all right? I just lucked out, truly. And then you just come back. Everything's in 3s for the oxen plow. You can, you know, you don't have to, you can do 4 if you want. It's very flexible. Again, these are structures that you can use with any size paper, which is what I like. And they're so easy to work with for children. You know, kids don't want to be bothered with rulers or, you know, pencils. So you say, okay, let's fold. We're gonna let the books tell us what they want to do. So with the oxen plow, you're gonna cut from this edge and stop right here. Please notice I do work with a lot of kids because I got
Nothing too sharp.
No. And for, you know, for people my age, because you never know. Okay, so that's the first cut, all right? Then we're gonna flip it and we're gonna do the same cut to this point. Got it? Sure, Maryann. You're really making me work here.
3/4 of the way up.
Yep,
There we go.
like so, all right?
Okay.
All right, so here we go. And you might have to readjust the fold. So we're gonna have the ox takes the plow and plows the field. He turns the plow, continues plowing the field. Flip it. And he turns the plow again. And he finishes out.
Wow.
Therefore called the oxen plow. That's how they taught it. So, and here's the little book. And you have these lovely little openings that you can put little pop-ups in.
Very
And again,
neat.
a nice little chap form book. Yeah, a book for chap, form for chapbooks. You could do this with watercolor paper. You could do a mono print on this and cut it in such a way that it would just be exquisite. It would just be a lovely little book. And then what I would do is I would take cardstock and just lay the book here and measure it, crease it, and then flip it over, do the same, cut it out, and just stick a cover on it. No stitching, no stapling, nothing. It's just a beautiful little form, which is what I love about it. You know, again, this would be great if you're doing any type of concrete poetry. You could do it with old book pages. You could do it with old musical pages, music sheet pages, you know, and create things. paint on it, whatever. That's what I love about these. So please feel free, take any. Do you have any questions?
Well, Maryann, I'm thinking about another little book that's hanging around your neck.
Oh yes.
And I was
Oh, my
wondering if you
God.
might want to show that to the
Well,
audience. Or
yeah,
to the,
yeah. This is, well, Tammy noticed this, yes, and I have been making these for years. This is a combination of a stitch called the 2-needle Coptic. And it's a combination of jewelry making because you're using a brass, I have to take, I don't think I've taken this off since I made it.
Uh-oh.
No, we're all right, we're okay. Here, let me take it off. So what it is, it's a 1 inch by 1 1/4 inch brass plate that I actually flow solder on. And then I add the brass fixtures while I'm flowing the solder, so everything is set. Then you have to clean it, and then I actually have to, this is an illustration of a small egg with precious that is actually taken from a vintage dictionary, and I'm using a jeweler's grade resin to actually coat and fix those images in the little brass piece. And if you look, you can see I really didn't do a great job with that dictionary word because it's kind of like overlapping, but that's the thing about handmade, you know? So, and then the back's got a little brass fixture that I actually got down at Salvage Goods in downtown Easton. Okay, so inside is handmade paper that I created, and this is made with plants, where you take wet paper pulp, and between each sheet I stacked leaves, fall leaves at this time of the year, and you press it. And the process of pressing it will actually release the chlorophyll in the leaf, so you get these beautiful little stains. Okay? And this was watercolor paper that I used.
Does it mildew?
No, because I let it dry for a good 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And then I take it apart, and then I let it dry again. I put it out on a sunny day. I usually do this in the summertime when it's really hot, you know. And you can submerge the whole pressing. I usually do about 10 sheets at a time, usually 12 by 19. And I keep fall leaves, so I'll put those in. You can pour hot water over it, which will release the pigments faster. And then you press it, so you get all the water out of it. And the process of pressing is very technical. You get a wooden board and you put it on the ground, okay? You lay your paper down with the leaves, and you put another wooden board on top, and you get on top and you stomp it.
Like you're making wine.
Exactly. So, and some people will run their car up over it to get all the water out, you know, and then you leave it sit. You bind it. You don't have to bind it, but I usually, you know, wrap it with string, and I let it, what I call steep. It's almost like making a good tea, you know. The longer you let it sit, the more colors released from the leaves. You can use twigs, okay, whatever. So anyways, that's how I got that. People will make it quickly with coffee, tea, you know, tea stained paper, coffee stained paper. So I cut all the pages down, and you actually will like fold them. And I did a signature of 2. If you look really closely, that's a signature of 2 pages.
Oh, gotcha.
And then there are 5 signatures. Can you see that?
Wow.
Like maybe you can, well, this is the best way to see it. So there's 5 signatures, and I used a traditional 2-needle Coptic binding. Coptic binding is the oldest. It was discovered in Egypt, in the Coptic region. And it's wonderful because you can actually unfold a book, like actually 360 degrees if you wanted to, or 180.
Without breaking the spine.
Yeah. What I did on this one, and this was just through trial and error, is that after I do the binding, because I was not wax it, you should be using waxed thread for binding. Because this is so tiny, I ended up using Coates and Clark carpet thread, all right, which has the same consistency as a waxed thread. It's a little thinner, so it was easier to get through these small holes. And then I took what they call a rhino glue, which is basically like crazy glue. It's very liquid, very viscous, but it dries rock solid. So it gave more stability to the Coptic binding on this size. The 2-needle Coptic is smaller for smaller books, but I wouldn't go above a 3x3. You need more stitching to keep the binding sturdy. And you need to really use like a
So
good
use
sturdy
the
thread.
rhino glue on the
Right on the edge. See that glisten on the
Yeah.
thread? That's the rhino glue.
binding itself.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
made the
just on
holes
the
with
threading.
needle?
Right.
On the paper, yes. I made the holes in the brass plates with a Dremel. But you want to keep the holes as small as you can so that a needle can go through it. And I'm using a very fine needle. These drive you nuts. You drink a lot of wine when you're doing this.
Well,
Just saying.
after you're
Well,
doing it.
yeah, sometimes you get frustrated. And what's even worse is that when you're doing the 2-needle Coptic, you're simultaneously looping and pulling.
Right.
So I have to have this is no lie. I have one needle stuck in my pants while I'm doing the other thread because you're going across,
of course.
through, and then down the next signature. So you can get twisted so easily, and that's if I get twisted really easily, then I drink a lot of wine and I just put it away.
Just go with it.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
twisted all over.
Exactly. And then for this, I just added the little leather
Well,
tie binding and everything.
Beautiful. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
pretty.
Sure.
taking that
Yay.
apart.
Sure. No, it wasn't that. These are fun. They are down at Connections if you are interested. I've had, I've been making them for years. I just have a few that I kept for myself because they're just so precious that I can't sell them. You get to that point on certain ones,
Sure. Yeah.
and this has these are vintage Victorian chains that I used, with just a simple brass chain. So, yeah, that's one of my favorites.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.